Hello friends, my name is Jayesh Kohli, and as I mentioned earlier, today I am going to share my experience traveling from Boston to Mumbai. So I traveled on 20th of November and came back in USA on 6th of December. I know these are difficult times and the rules, regulation, all the travel restrictions are changing every day. So through this video, I am going to share my experience, how I planned my travel, some of the pitfalls I ran into, and hopefully sharing these experiences will also help you to plan your travel around this during these difficult times. Alright, so let's get started. The last time I visited my family, it was back in February, and I thought this was good time to visit them again and also to meet my fiancée. It had been a while, and probably you can say this is not an ideal time for air travel, but then a lot of people were traveling and I thought maybe I can just visit for a couple of weeks and then come back. So first part that you have to do is that you have to get yourself tested for coronavirus. Now you can, based on where you live in the United States, you can get tested by drive-through location, you can just walk in, or you can just schedule appointment with urgent care locations. I live in Massachusetts, Boston. So here I had two choices. The first one was Physician 1 Urgent Care, and the second one was Coleman Square Health Center. If you are living in Boston area, then you can visit both of these places to get yourself tested for coronavirus. Either of them is fine, but since I wasn't sure whether I am going to get results within 72 hours or not, so I had to pick one of them based on the reviews and results. So I'm going to give the descriptions and links of both of these urgent care locations in the description and as well as during this video presentation. So if you want to avail these facilities, you can do that. The next part, how long does it take for you to get results back? Now it depends on healthcare center locations, but in my case, I got results within 36 hours. So my flight was leaving at 8 o'clock on Saturday, and I got myself tested on Thursday morning, and I would say I got results within 36 to 40 hours. So it wasn't that bad, it was pretty good. But sometimes you get that anxious feeling that am I going to get a result or not, or do I need to stay in quarantine at Mumbai airport or whichever airport you're landing at in India. So there is always an anxiety, and there is no guarantee you're going to get results within 72 or 36 hours. But it all depends on how many patients they're taking, or how much capacity do they have. In my case, it was pretty straightforward, and I got my results back within 36 to 40 hours. Now, you don't have to get yourself tested before you leave United States as of today, 20th of December. But what you have to do is that unless you get yourself tested and the test result comes as a negative, you have to stay in institutional quarantine for 7 days, at least in Maharashtra, Mumbai, and you have to stay at home for 7 more days. In fact, there is actually one testing location right at the airport where you have to wait for 8 hours before you get your results. And there is also one location, I forgot the name, I'm going to put that in the description. But if you leave the airport and if you go to the parking area, you can find that location there. So you can also get yourself tested in that location. So it's not mandatory to get tested, but it's more convenient because you have your test report, you're negative, you can directly go home and get quarantine for 14 days, and that's all. However, I didn't want to get tested at airport, but I would rather get it tested in the United States. So that was the option I went with. So this was all about COVID-19 tests, and if you have any more questions, feel free to post that in the comments section, or feel free to send me a message. Other question that people get confused about is, what is the 72 hours rule? How long before my flight leaves I have to get myself tested? Now I too was confused about this, and so this 72 hours timeline. So what you have to do is that before you leave United States, you are departing flight that leaves you United States, so you have to get yourself tested for the COVID-19 within 72 hours of this flight. But if you are taking a domestic flight, that does not count. Now let's take this example. Suppose you have the flight, so you live in the Columbus, Ohio, and you have a flight going from Columbus to Mumbai via Boston. So your flight from Columbus, Ohio leaves at noon on say Saturday, and the flight from Boston to Mumbai leaves at 8 o'clock in the evening of Saturday. So when should you take this test? Now, when you live in the Columbus, Ohio, that time is not considered during your COVID-19 72 hours period. So the time they are going to consider of your departure is that 7 to 8 o'clock on Saturday when you are leaving United States for India. So if you are leaving United States, say Boston, on 8 o'clock on Saturday night, then you have to get yourself tested between the range of 8 o'clock on Wednesday to 8 o'clock on Saturday, because that gives you like 72 hours period. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So if you take the test before 8 o'clock on Wednesday, that does not count because you are exceeding your 72 hours limit. And then you assume like, I'm living at like noon time, Columbus, Ohio, but it's your domestic flight. So that does not count against 72 hours. So your 72 hour clock starts from the time when you leave United States, that's all. So if your flight were to be leaving at like noon on Saturday, then you would have to take COVID-19 test within 72 hours period, which is noon Wednesday to noon Saturday. So that's your prescribed time period. If you still have any confusion around this process, do send me a message or like comment in the following section, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. Now the next part comes like, which airline should I fly with? There are like various airlines like available between United States and India right now. They are like Qatar Airways, they are like Lufthansa. The United Airlines and Air India are obviously running as a part of Air Bubble. That is, you get direct flight from US to India. I didn't want to like experiment a lot with Qatar and Lufthansa Airways. And there's like one more, I think British Airlines is running as well. But I have seen some cases where people were not allowed to board on flight. I mean, you have to follow certain rules. But I wasn't certain, and I was like more confused about their rules and guidelines. And I didn't want to risk myself to get stranded at the airport when I'm about to board an aircraft. So I decided to go either with Air India or United Airlines because they were offering direct flights from US to India. So there is no risk of you getting stranded somewhere in the Europe or somewhere in the Middle East. As I mentioned earlier, I went through a bunch of posts in the ASOS Global Indies forum, and a lot of people were mentioning like good things about United Airlines. And people were not so happy with the Air India. And I'm not here to criticize particular airline. I have never traveled by Air India. But in this case, I decided to go with United Airlines. And if that flight lasts for around like 15 to 17 hours. So I would say if possible, get a business class. And if business class is too much out of your budget, feel free to go with like at least premium economy class, because unless you want to sit at your place for like 18 straight hours, I would say premium economy is slightly more comfortable than regular class. In my experience, I was getting economy at around like $1,500, and I had to pay extra $1,000 for getting premium economy, but it's totally worth it. And the cost I'm talking about is like two-way travel between USA and India. If you want any more information, I'm going to put a link to like United Airlines website, and in addition, I'm also going to like put some photographs as we like progress through this video. Now there are some photographs where I'm traveling from like airport, the kind of food that we get, the kind of experience I have at the Indian airport. So hopefully those photos will help you out to understand like what kind of situation we had. In terms of the meal, we got served 3 times. So they gave us breakfast twice, and we got like one hot meal during my travel for 18 hours. It was pretty good. I think the flight was fully packed. People were not completely following social distancing, but everybody was wearing their face masks, so it wasn't that terrible. I know at airport when you're traveling, some of the people just wear their mask on the chin, not on the mouth and nose, which is pretty bad. But at least in the aircraft, all the stewardess and all the air hostesses were pretty strict about like people following their guidelines. And I'm glad to say everybody was following that rule, so there wasn't any issue. But as long as social distancing goes, I don't think you can exactly follow that guidelines in the plane, especially because there is a very cramped space and there are like many people in the small area. So that should be understandable. Now, one thing I missed is that, like, what do you have to do before you get on the flight? I would say, as I mentioned earlier, you have to get yourself tested for COVID-19, make sure you're negative. And then you have that report. You can go to self-exception request website and upload that report there. Unless something bad happens, when you upload the results, you can get your results back within like email back within like 30 minutes to 1 hour, saying whether your request is accepted or rejected. In my case, I had the report. I went to this website, uploaded the results, and I got the result reply from the exemption website within like 15 minutes saying my request has been approved. I'm going to put the link and description of where you have to do this, where you have to like submit this form in this below the video link, as well as in this video as a part of this process. One more thing you have to do is that you have to submit a self-reporting form saying like which country you are flying from, like how many countries you have been to, like what is your passport number, when and where you will be traveling, what is your exact home address. So you have to give all this information as part of the self-reporting information. I'm also going to include this link in the description, and as well as I'm going to like show the screenshot of that website as a part of this video process. So you have to do three things. You have to get yourself tested for the COVID-19, make sure you are negative, or actually your report is negative. Make sure you get that report and submit the self-exemption request form. Thereby you can avoid institutional quarantine and get quarantine at home address. Third thing you have to do is that you have to submit a self-reporting form. You have to go to this website, fill this form in with your personal information and submit that form to the Indian government. And they are going to send you the email with the hard copy containing PDF. So make sure you have the hard copy of this PDF email you get, the exemption request form, and make sure to carry them with you as you are traveling, because officials may ask you to like submit that copy. In my cases, you can also store this approval request on your phone. So for example, if you submit the request to get the exemption from institutional quarantine, you'll get an email saying your request has been approved. And make sure when you show this email to government officials, show both this email, that PDF, and as well as your COVID-19 negative test report. So travel day, what you're supposed to do on a travel date. Now please understand that my case is specific to Boston, Massachusetts, Boston Logan Airport, and this is specific to United Airlines. So if you're traveling with other airline or from different airport or like different city, things might change. But as long as the airline is concerned, there is not much chance that things might change a lot in the coming days. I reached the airport 3 hours earlier, which is like slightly earlier than what I usually like go to airport at. I usually I usually reach airport at around like before like 2.5 hours before my scheduled flight. But since this is a COVID time, I reached the airport like around 3 hours to make sure I follow all the routines and regulations before I board the flight. At the airport, I would strongly recommend you to check in online. You check in online, and when you go to like baggage drop-off area, you don't have to like check in. You just have to like submit your baggage and everything is fine. I'm also attaching some photos of how the airport looked like on that day. Not many people were traveling. The airport was sparse. The security lines were short, and then luckily I was able to like get to the security only within like 5 to 10 minutes, which is like much faster than what I usually travel with. I reached the airport. I had already checked in. All I had to do was that just drop off my baggage, and United Airlines customer care was super helpful. They were super nice, and they helped me to like check in baggage within like 5 minutes, which was like super quick. The next thing I did was like just pass through the TSA security. No surprises here, just the same routine. The only thing is that you have to like keep wearing your mask. And then when you go to like TSA security agent, they will ask you to like take off mask for like couple of seconds, verify your photo ID, and then allow you to pass. This is like normal routine. Nothing has changed due to COVID times. So I was able to like pass through the security. I was able to like reach my gates around like an hour earlier at least. Another thing is that what kind of precautions or what kind of equipments you should be carrying, or what you should be wearing as you're traveling during the COVID times. In my case, I carried 2 extra bottles of sanitizer, which was like pretty strong. It contained like 70% alcohol. I also carried the regular mask, the surgical mask with me. But since I had to travel and go to like toilet sometimes, or like travel through the aircraft for longer amount of time, I also carried KN95 mask from the Amazon. I'm going to include their links in the description. This is no sponsored links. Like I'm not going to get benefited in terms of any money or something else, but this is just my experience. I think those masks were worth it. They were like kind of uncomfortable in the beginning. So I would say before you travel, wear that mask at home for a couple of more days to get used to it. Another thing I did was that I brought a face shield which covers your face area, and just like you have to like wear that around your temple. Unfortunately, I did not wear that because I thought KN95 masks were like pretty safe. I had the sanitizer bottles, and wearing that mask for the 18 hours was just too much for me. So I ended up like not wearing that. But if you want to like take extra precaution, I would say buy KN95 mask, like have a sanitizer, and also have the face shield. But in my case, I think face shield was more like optional thing. I didn't carry it like all the way through during my travel. But K95 masks are useful. They're uncomfortable, but they're totally worth it. The benefit that you get from wearing those K95 masks outweighs all the risks that you might have to go through. Now you may ask, what does United Airlines provide any extra equipment for you? Now, I have seen that when for people who were like sitting at aisle or were in the middle seat in the economy class, I think those people got like the full set for sanitizing themselves. Like they got sanitizer, they got mask, they got like face shield, they got like whole PPE kit suit, and they got all those equipments because they were sitting in the high risk areas. But if you're sitting in the premium economy, business class, or like on the window seat, I don't think they're going to provide you with that. So it depends where you sit, how much plane is crowded, and how many people are traveling during that leg. So how was my experience in the aircraft? Everybody on the United Airlines was super helpful, super nice, and 18 hours sounds too much. And now that's the one reason I never travel like continuous flight from US to India. Never. This was my first time I was traveling on a direct flight from US to India or India to US. As I mentioned earlier, we get like 2 breakfast items, like 1 hot meal. The air hostesses were enforcing rule of wearing that mask all the time. We were provided with the sanitizers in the beginning of travel. As soon as we entered the plane, they gave us the sanitizer wipes with a strong smell. So it allowed us to like wipe our hands, the seat, and all the stuff that we were like carrying around. So that was super helpful. There was nothing like surprises. The aircraft like flew at it actually did not fly time. Like so our total journey time was 16 hours. Our aircraft left like 1 hour late, but that wasn't a problem. We reached like 45 minutes earlier, which means we actually saved a couple of hours of time than actually scheduled time, which is pretty good. So no surprises there, and in my experience, I would give it like 4.5 star out of 5 to United Airlines. The travel was amazing. Everything like went smoothly. And if you're traveling from US to India at this point, or like coming back from India to US, I would strongly recommend to take United Airlines option instead of like other airlines. And I don't know how your travel plans look like, but in case if you want to like travel through extra leg like through Europe or Middle East, I would strongly advise against that unless you know what you're doing. You should know all the rules and regulation, what exactly documents you have to show, and what kind of like COVID-19 testing you have to do. Because for some airlines, rules change. Sometimes you have to take tests 72 hours prior, or for some of them, you have to take COVID-19 tests 48 hours prior. So as long as you know what you're doing, I think it's okay to like take flights with extra layover in like one of the intermediate airports. But if possible, or if you're traveling with elderly people, or if elderly people are traveling by themselves, I would strongly recommend to take direct flight between the United States and India. Now let's talk about my experience when I landed at Mumbai airport. As I mentioned earlier, not many flights were arriving in India. So I think our flight was coming, and there was like one more flight coming from Dubai. So as usual, we had to like walk a long way from our aircraft to immigration area. So immigration area was also stranded. It was like really empty because you only have like 2 flights coming from overseas, and then like there were around like 10 to 15 immigration counters open at that time. My flight arrived at around like 9:30 in the evening, and I was cleared with everything within like 1 hour, which is like pretty fast. There was like one time where I had to wait at in the immigration line for 90 minutes. Given that this is like not many people are traveling, this becomes much faster. Now what do you have to do at immigration counter? If you have traveled before, if you have traveled from overseas location to India before, you would notice that you have to go to the immigration official, and given that you are an Indian citizen, all you have to do is that you have to show your boarding pass and then your passport to the immigration officer. They will ask you a few questions in case. Once they're satisfied with everything, they will stamp your passport and allow you to let go to the exit. Now, as you pass to the immigration area, now you are going to go through the duty-free area where people might ask you to like purchase some liquor or some other exotic items, but that is regular stuff. It's not related to like COVID-19. What happens next is more interesting. In the next part, there are like 2 lines. The first line is for people who have installed the Arogya Setu app. This is one thing you have to do before you travel. You have to install the Arogya Setu app, you have to register with the Indian phone number, and you have to make sure it's working fine. Now, when you reach at the airport, if you already have the internet connection, if you already have the Arogya Setu app registered, you're fine. There is like different line for those people. You just show that your Arogya Setu app is installed, it's working fine. They'll see the app, and then you are like allowed to like go through that area. Now, given that if you don't have Arogya Setu app installed, first you have to get the internet connection to install it. Install it on the register it with the Indian number, and then show it to the security guards there, saying, hey, I have installed the Arogya Setu app, please allow me to like pass in. So make sure you have the internet connection at the airport, Arogya Setu app is installed, it's registered, and it's working fine. In case if you don't have access to internet, the Arogya Setu app won't work even if it is installed on your phone. So make sure you have like appropriate internet plan before you travel. The airport also allows you to like purchase extra like Jio SIM card or like Airtel SIM card in case if you want to have the internet access, but that comes with extra cost. So I would say if you already have the international plan, feel free to avail that before going through the security check where they check your Arogya Setu app status. Once you pass through the security check and once you show your Arogya Setu app, you are redirected to the baggage claim area. Now, sometimes you have to wait for a long time because bags might take like longer, like 10 minutes, like half an hour to come through the carousel area. If you're traveling by the business class or the premium economy class, your baggage gets the premium treatment, which means it gets brought in at the prioritized time, like it gets brought in earlier than expected. So that is like one benefit you get. You don't have to wait for a long time to collect your baggage. In my case, it took me some time to pass through immigration and go through the extra security measures. So by the time I reached there, my bag was already delivered and I could see that taken beside the carousel area. So I didn't have to like wait there for a long time. But some of you who may not have to like wait for a long time, you can avail like extra classes. But for some of you who do not want to like wait for a long time for the baggage to arrive, you can also go to the premium economy or business class so that you can collect that baggage as soon as possible. The next part is you collect your baggage and then you pass to the customs area, where if you have something to declare, you pass through the red zone, or if you don't have something to declare, you go through the green zone. Once you clear out the customs, now you'll be redirected to area where you'll be sent to the institutional quarantine or at home based on your current result. If you already took the COVID-19 test back in US, all you have to show is that your exemption request has been approved and your COVID-19 test result. And if you don't have this result at all, you have an option to get tested at the airport. In that case, you have to wait at the airport for 8 hours before the result of COVID-19 test comes back. And if you already have that result in your hand, you can just show them to like security guard and they can allow you to go home. Now, when they allow you to go home, it doesn't mean you can just like roam around the street or you can go anywhere you want. I would strongly suggest you to like stay at home for 14 days. You self-quarantine at home in like one room or like one area where you're not harming yourself or other people out of like COVID-19 risk. Because you came from United States, you travel in the aircraft for like 18 hours and then like, I don't know, like you met a bunch of people at the airport. So that elevates your risk of catching COVID-19. So it's strongly recommended to actually impose that self-quarantine on you for at least 14 days. Now, there is one catch. Even if you got yourself tested for COVID-19, your exemption request has been approved. Sometimes you have to like go to the reporting officer. COVID-19, the BMC has allowed me to like pass through the security and then I should be like reporting in that area. In my case, since I was traveling to Virar area, it was like which falls under the Palghar jurisdiction, I was asked to go to the Hotel Royal Garden on the Ghodbandar Road and report there. All I had to do was that carry my passport, carry my boarding pass, carry my like COVID-19 test report which says I was negative, and the exemption approval request. I had to go there at Hotel Royal Garden on the Ghodbandar Road, call that to the medical officer came in, he collected all my details, he verified all the details and asked me to go home. So make sure you don't skip this step. Now nobody is going to enforce you to like go to the reporting officer, but it's strongly recommended. If you fail to do that, there may be some restriction on your passport. And I have heard some stories where people's passport got locked or it got like restricted due to people failing to report to the medical officer in that region. So make sure what you're doing, and before you leave the airport area, you ask all the necessary questions to all those security guards saying, what am I supposed to do next? Am I supposed to report somewhere else? Can I just go home? Everything else. Now, since I was living in Palghar area, I had to go to the separate reporting location like Hotel Royal Garden. But if you're just living in Mumbai, in any Mumbai area, all you have to do is that you have to like fill in those details at the airport, and then you can directly go home. You don't have to like report to another extra locations. Now there's like one tidbit I would like to mention. There are like a couple of forms you have to fill in as you travel from USA to India. So I would say carry your own pain. Don't share that pain with other people. And I'm not saying that because I'm mean or something, but sharing your pain increases your possibility of contracting or giving COVID to someone else. So as long as you have your own pain, you are good. You don't have to like worry about anything. So this is like one small thing I would like to mention to all of you who might be traveling. I left the airport around like 10:30 to 11. After 11, I reached home at around like 1 o'clock. I live in Virar, so it took some time. But all in all, there wasn't any chaos. There wasn't any like, the complete journey was uneventful. There weren't any surprises. So obviously, SOS Global Indians helped me a lot. But this is from my personal perspective, like how the process went through, how it was experienced, and if there are any catches during this process or as you're traveling from USA to India. So overall, I was like really satisfied with like United Airlines services, like Indian government's like organization and everything that went smoothly. So there are some tips I would like to share. Make sure you get yourself tested with the COVID-19 before you leave the USA. Make sure to fill in self-reporting and exemption request form. I'm going to include links to both of these forms in the description. So if you want to like look at that, you can do that right after this video. Other thing is that make sure you book yourself premium economy class. It's not a luxury, it's a requirement. Unless you are used to like flying for 18 to 19 hours, it should be fine. But I would say if you're traveling for the first time or if you have like elderly people with you, I would say make sure to like get some more comfortable ride. If you have some more money to spare, I would say business class is totally worth it. Maybe not forever, but at least during these difficult times. The other thing is that make sure you carry all the hard copies that you need. Probably if you get your COVID-19 test results at the end moment before you arrive at the airport, it's okay to carry the soft copy. But I would say just carry the hard copies as much as possible just to be on the safer side. United Airlines also allows you to like, as long as in the premium economy or in the regular economy class, it allows you to like check in two bags, each weighing 50 pounds or like 23 kg. And it also allows you to carry like one shoulder bag and one carry-on luggage as you're traveling in the aircraft, irrespective of your class. I'm not sure if you're traveling with the business class, you may be allowed to like carry some extra luggage, but you have to check that with respective airline, or in this case, United Airlines. So this was all from my side. I hope this helps a lot. If you have any further questions, any comments or like queries, feel free to add them in the comment section and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. It was my experience. This is my first part, sharing my experiences traveling from Boston to Mumbai. In the next part of the video that I'm going to do, I'm going to share my experience traveling from Mumbai to Boston. In the meantime, stay safe, happy holidays, happy Christmas, happy New Year in advance. And if you're traveling to India, make sure to, even if you have like test report, make sure to get yourself quarantined for 14 days before you like venture outside. That's all. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you have any further questions, feel free to like contact me. Thank you so much. Have a happy holidays and stay safe. Bye-bye.